I become invisible, the more I can become part of the scene, the more the photographic opportunities present themselves to me. The camera, it becomes a productive tool. It's there for a purpose.
デザインを検討するときにスケッチを書いて最初検討して、その次にですね 3D データを入れてからこのようなラフな削りのモデルを作ります。でこれをベースにボタンの位置が適切であるかとか、あるいはグリップ性能はこれでいいかとかっていうのを検討していくんですけれども、我々が一番に考えていることはやはり使われる方、ユーザーのことです。
マイタリが残した言葉の一つに、我々はカメラを開発提供しているんではなくて、カメラを通じて人々が幸せになることを提供しているんだっていう言葉があります。ないから作る、その精神というのを日々実現しようと、これこそが社会に対するオリンパスの役割だと思っています。
Good afternoon, everyone. We're live once more for day 2 of the Cambridge Photography Weekender. My name is David Smith and I'm here with Olympus, hopefully for the next half an hour or so, to delve into some interesting facts and specifications on the EM1X right here on the Cambridge Photography Week Facebook Live. Sponsored by Campkins, of course. So hello to everybody in Campkins, hello to everybody at Cambridge Photography Week in the background, and hello to all of you watching. Please do say hello in the comments as well. It's always nice to see who's watching and who's out and about. Who are you? Where are you from? Let us know. Say hi. And hopefully today will be interesting for those of you that haven't come across the Olympus EM1X properly yet. Now, I know some of you have got the EM1X, which is a fantastic pro flagship camera of Olympus, fantastic for wildlife and sports photography, as well as all those other areas of photography that all the other models do cover as well. The EM1X is a special model all on its own. It's kind of the chosen one. But it is very different in terms of Micro Four Thirds models in general and what we've produced from Olympus in the past. So hopefully this little presentation, plus any questions that you've got which will be answered throughout the session, will be interesting and perhaps even a little bit entertaining. Hello to Mayland from Western Australia. 2 days in a row, Mayland. 2 days in a row. Nice and early over there. Almost midnight. Almost midnight. Hello to Richard. Richard Howell, good to have you in as well. Although you should be here, Richard, really, shouldn't you? And I think I've got Owen in the background who's dropping in some links for the products and any other information that you need. Of course, if you need to talk to anybody about these products, then of course do ring Campkins in Cambridge, give them a call on the phone. Even better still, on Monday, go in and talk to them. But give them a call and see if they can answer any of your other kit questions as well. So, like I said, put some questions in the comments. I'll do my very best to answer them as I go through. I'll do some sections of this presentation that's going to take over your screen in just a second. And then I'll stop at different points and keep coming back to the comments to say hi. Dwar, hi Dwar, good to see you again. And Roger as well from Wisbeach, as normal. Excellent stuff. Brilliant stuff. Okay, let's take a look at this camera. Well, here it is. Obviously, in real life, this is what we're looking at. So this is an EM1X with the lovely 100 to 400 lens attached just there. Absolutely phenomenal piece of kit. But yes, it is different to what we all really know and love as an EM1, because there's a massive size difference, because this camera has got this vertical grip built into it, so we can chop and change from portrait to landscape, and it's all in there. Plus we've got things like our battery tray for 2 batteries and other things like that. So yes, it is different. Let's have a little look at why it's different. Let's look at this. Oh, there we go. I'll stay up in the corner and I'll try not to cause any bother up there, but we're going to have a little look at what the EM1X is all about. Now, this picture you got here, this is from one of our fantastic ambassadors. This is Fernando Marmoleo. He's an action and kind of like out there photographer, as you can see here, taking a face full of sand from that dune buggy. And he's shooting on an EM1X with an 8mm lens on there. And you can see the picture that he got superimposed in the bottom corner there on that EM1X. And that just goes to prove one of the very, very big points of Olympus's technology, and that is all about the environmental sealing. So no worries about that sand getting inside the unit at all. Okay, let's have a little look. Our tagline for the EM1X is, of course, absolute confidence. It's one whole package. It's a superior package with massively high-speed performance, a massively redeveloped AF system, a huge benchmark in reliability now with all of these things put together, with enhanced image quality that was... We worked a lot with the professional photographers in order to put this out there, particularly because we knew it would be a different kind of model from Micro Four Thirds in general. A fully expandable system of which we've already built massively on. The amount of lenses and accessories for this camera is insane. And of course, now every camera has to have superior video options on it, and the EM1X is one of those cameras as well. So why is it a new reliability benchmark? Well, it's about the handling. So we've put in these optimal ergonomics. You've got that built-in vertical grip for brilliant performance, whether you're using it landscape or portrait orientation. And that's there for a massive reason. It's there to take on the balance of the super telephoto lenses, in particular, the 100 to 400, the 300mm f4, or indeed the brand new, newly announced and released 150 to 400mm pro lenses. So you need that kind of ergonomics and balance. It's not to say that you can't pop them onto an EM1 Mark II or Mark III, but your balance and ergonomics is where the EM1X is designed. And it is a phenomenal unit to handle as well. And that's what it's for. It's about that kind of travel aspect. If you can see there, we've got a little picture of, and this shadow that you can see on this picture behind the EM1X with a 300mm f4 on is of another mirrorless camera. So it's a mirrorless 35mm format camera. So you can see the body's not that much bigger, but the lens is incredibly bigger. It's much, much bigger. So that's what we've shortened down, but we've got that balance with the lens and the body. We've also put in dual operation in both landscape and portrait. So you have two joysticks, you have two sets of dials. Everything is replicated no matter which way you turn this camera. So it's absolutely superb, and everything is exactly where you need it to be. So in exactly the same place. The muscle memory that you can gain by using this camera doesn't need to change when you change that orientation. Of course, we've got a beautiful high magnification and high-speed viewfinder in there. This viewfinder is capable of running it up to 120 frames per second. So this is going to give you a beautifully smooth view with a reaction time, or the lag time, of 0.005 seconds, which is something that the human eye can barely notice. So 120 frames per second. If you've got an EM1X right now, you own one already, and you haven't switched it to 120 frames per second, do it, because it will change the way that you pan, it will change the way that you see through the viewfinder. It's a fantastic way to use that viewfinder. And of course, this was the first camera ever, not just for Olympus, but the first camera ever from a consumer point of view to get an IP rating. And this is an IPX1 weather resistance rating, so an ingress protection weather resistance rating from water, so it's splash proof, dust proof, freeze proof to -20 degrees, operational at -10 degrees. But the IPX1 rating was the first camera to get this, and now we've passed that on to its brother, the EM1 Mark III as well. And we do actually soak our cameras in a spray tunnel for hours and hours in order to test them. And you can see from these pictures down here that we're getting things. Oh, I'm going a bit ahead of myself there. We're getting things like the spray testing. We've got the ultrasonic, the supersonic wave filter that vibrates the sensor, kicks any dust off the sensor if it gets in there. Housekeeping tip: do not change your lenses whilst your camera's switched on. And of course, the heat management system. So you've got heat dispersion coming from a chimney stack system on the back of the camera, so you don't need to worry about any overheating. Overheating is not cool. We don't want that. Dual battery, so you've got a dual battery case in there with USB power delivery as well. So if you've got a USB PD, power delivery device, you can plug that into your camera and use it, operate your camera whilst it's plugged into a power bank. Shove the power bank in your pocket, go ahead and use it. Or you can switch the camera off and the camera will charge from that USB device as well. 2 hours USB charging time for both batteries, which is insanely quick. And of course, it's got that magnificent shutter unit in there that we've tested for over 400,000 actuations. That's the same for the EM1 Mark III as well. And then the user interface that we developed with professional photographers to make sure that it was going to work right. We also added in a My Menu option where you, the user, can build up your own menu system in an order of how you use things, or the most important features that you want to use in the orders that you want to use them in. And it's a spectacular feature that we then rolled out also again into the EM1 Mark III as well. I'm just going to come back out of there for a second. I'm going to go over to the comment section just to see what's going on over here. I'm going to say hello to a couple of people as well. Hello to Clive Downs. Hello, Clive. Haven't seen you in a while. Roger loves his EM1X. Fantastic stuff. Mayland used this combination over the Easter weekend. Brilliant stuff. Hope you got some great shots. Madingley Cricket Club really wants 100 to 400, but would like to try it first. When do we think they'll be on the shop shelves? Excuse me. Well, 100 to 400 is still technically a pre-order item, but those who have pre-ordered it are receiving it. So people are receiving those 100 to 400s. But that means that whilst there's still a queue for them, there won't be any to sit on a shelf in a shop just to be there to pick up. Because they're going straight to their brand new owners and off to their brand new homes. So it's going to be a little while yet. There were so many orders on that lens, but we are closing down the queue very quickly. So we hope within the next sort of month or so to be having that narrowed right down to when you can have it on the shelves. And hopefully Campkins will have one sitting there ready for whoever it is at Madingley Cricket Club that wants to give it a try out. Because I never get a name. I just know it's the Cricket Club. Not long, I hope. Fingers crossed for you. So Campkins have also put up the link to the magnificent 150 to 400 millimeter. Now there is a queue for that one, so do have a conversation with Campkins and manage your expectations of when you would receive that lens very, very well. Okay, but it is a phenomenal lens. I hosted a webinar this morning with the brilliant David Tippling, who is our wildlife ambassador here at Olympus, and he was raving about the 150 to 400 and what an amazing lens it was, and showing us some images that were just absolutely superb. Hello Yvonne, good to see you. Clive has asked, does the EM1X have the same portrait focusing functions as the EM1 Mark III? If not, is it likely to get these functions in a later firmware update? Portrait focusing functions, do you mean the enhanced eye detection? Is that what you mean? At this moment in time, it does not have that. It is a possibility for a future firmware update, but the most recent firmware update that we did for functionality was to introduce the bird eye subject detection, and it was a rather large one, so we didn't put too much into that firmware update. But if you mean the eye AF, then that's definitely a possibility for the future. Roger is asking which is the best, MC14 or MC20. He finds on the 100 to 400 with the MC20 is a bit soft. Is the 1.4 any better in your opinion? I think it does vary which lenses you're using it on and what telephoto distances. My preference is something like the 300mm with the 1.4, but the 40 to 150 with the 2x converter. On the 100 to 400, I have only used the 1.4 so far, and I have found it spectacularly sharp. So I have to say it is sharp with the 1.4 and the 100 to 400, but I haven't tested the 2x out yet. You've got to remember, the more you teleconvert, the more chance you have of other factors getting involved. So you're going further. There could be things like environmental haze and things like that. So you've got to weigh all that up in a balance. But for my opinion, on the 100 to 400 with a 1.4, it's absolutely brilliant. Okay, I will come back to some more questions in a little second. Let's go back over, have a look about some more things on the EM1X. The fully redeveloped autofocusing system. Yes, so 121 all cross type phase detection sensors without any light flux limitations. And that comes down to talking about focusing in low light. That's what light flux limitations means. Now, of course, the EM1 series all benefit from 121 autofocus points, and they all benefit from being cross type, and they all benefit from being phase detect, but they don't all benefit from this super low level light focusing. They don't all benefit from this super new algorithm, which is a constant information recording algorithm. So if you're constantly shooting in continuous AF, then the information is acquired by the sensor and it keeps moving in a quicker focusing pattern. Of course, you've got the multi-selector knob, which we all know is a joystick. Let's be fair. It came out of Japan as a multi-selector knob, and we just said it's a joystick, don't worry about it. And you've got fully customizable AF points with new AF grids. So you've got a single point, of course you've got a very precise point for macro, a 5, 9 and 25 group point, and of course all 121 if you wanted to benefit from something like the cluster tracking for birds in flight, birds in the sky. You also have user-generated AF areas, so you can create your own size and shape of AF grids depending on the subject matter that you're shooting, such as here. And that's a really, really useful one. This is a 3x9 for the operator that's shooting these dirt bikes. And the one thing that no other camera in the range has got is the Intelligent Subject Detection AF, which was recently in December. Recently, it's quite a while now, we say December, 4 months ago, was updated to include the bird detection. So you can now use train detection, plane detection, motorsports, that's vehicles with 4 wheels or 2 wheels, and of course the bird AI detection as well. And these work phenomenally well. If you're using the motorsports, you can see here in the image that the camera initially first locks onto the vehicle, but if it sees a driver, it will then further lock onto the driver, even if the driver's wearing a helmet. So really, really cool features in there. And then that no light flux limitation area comes in with high precision AF in dark scenes. And this is focusing down to -6 EV, which is really, really good. I remember testing this when they first sent me an EM1X, and I was basically in my front corridor where the front door is. There are no windows in there, closing all the doors. It was absolutely pure darkness, and the camera still managed to focus on our little welcome mat at the front. Fantastic stuff. So the high-speed performance you've got in an EM1X, up to 18 frames per second in sequential tracking, so continual autofocus in RAW, and up to 60 frames per second in sequential shooting with AF lock, so first frame lock and bursting at 60 frames per second in RAW. You've also got Pro Capture, which is phenomenal. Pro Capture is an amazing feature that will capture the action before you fully press the shutter, so you can't miss that point when things happen. And that again can be used at either 18 frames per second in CAF or 60 frames per second in single focus lock, depending on what lenses you're using. Olympus lenses will all operate at 18 frames per second in continual autofocus, but some third-party ones will not. They'll only operate in the single frame lock. You're also going to benefit from anti-flicker shooting, which is great for indoor sports events, indoor sports halls. And you've got a dual UHS 2 card slot console. So in the EM1 Mark II, EM1 Mark III, that's got dual card slots, but only one of them is UHS 2. Now in the EM1X, both of your card slots are UHS 2. So you get that super fast high speed, obviously depending on what right speed card you get, but you get it in both of those slots. Okay, let's go back, have a little look at the comments. Just see there was a couple more questions in there. Duar saying that he uses both TCs with the 300mm f4. 1.4 is a tad sharper, but the 2 times is still really, really good. Possibly a touch less sharp. It's a great personal experience. Malin wants to know how to set the 120 frames per second for the viewfinder. Well, let's see if I can. I'll do it on an EM1 Mark III just because it's easier for my overhead camera. If this is going to work, I didn't anticipate doing an overhead, Malin. So let me see if this will work for you just here. Let's go across to this one. Oh, there we go. It's going to work. Let's get my keyboard out of the way and get nice and level in here. So in order to switch on your 120 frames per second in the viewfinder, you need to go into the menu. And in the menu, you want to be looking under D2. So you're in your cogs and in D2, and you want to go to frame rate. And this particular frame rate is relative only to your viewfinder. If you switch that to high, when you go to your live view screen, you'll actually see the little logo at the top. It says FPS, and that stands for frames per second. It's got a little arrow pointing upwards, and that means you're in high speed frames per second in that viewfinder. So when you go to that viewfinder, it'll all be lovely and smooth. And I must have been prepared for this overhead view because look, I even got the Cambridge Photography Weekender logo in there. So I must have thought about it at some point. Who'd have thought it? Let's turn all that off. Brilliant stuff. Hopefully that helps, Mayland, to get your high frames per second in the viewfinder on that. And it's not just on this camera either. You can do high frames per second on an EM1 Mark II, and you can do it on an EM1 Mark III as well. Okay, Cambridge Photography Week have just put a link into the comments for the Olympus Easter cashback, so don't forget about that and click on there. We've got our Easter cashback running. That's fantastic stuff. Loads and loads of bonuses to be had. Keep your questions coming in the comments, and I will do my best to answer them. Let's have a little look at what else we've got going on in the camera. So, enhanced image quality. Now, of course, every model that we make then goes up in image quality in terms of how we build it. But this has got the TruePic 8 engine. So it's actually the previous processor to what the EM1 Mark III has got. The EM1 Mark III has got the TruePic 9. But the EM1X has two TruePic 8 engines. So it's got two chip processors, which means that's why it can do the auto subject detection. So the things like bird tracking, plane tracking, motorsports tracking, it can do that because it's got two processors in there. And those two processors are on dual engine architecture. So it's two dual TruePic 8 engines. On top, you've got the 20.4 live MOS sensor, CMOS sensor, live CMOS sensor, with optimized pixel optics. So nice and sharp. And of course, no Olympus camera would be without our amazing stabilization technology. 5-axis stabilization on this camera, providing 7.5 stops of compensation when used with IS stabilized lenses. And there's a new gyroscope sensor in there that helps support that stabilization that's 5 times more accurate than any of the previous models. That gyroscope was also used in a rocket. Okay, so it was initially developed for a rocket, and then we used it also in our cameras. So that dual processor technology allows for certain things, and one of those is the high resolution shooting mode. Now you can shoot this in handheld mode at 50 million pixels RAW or JPEG, and you can also shoot this in a tripod based version, which will give you 80 million pixels of RAW, which is absolutely phenomenal in terms of high resolution shooting. We also introduced the magnificent Live ND feature on the EM1X. Live ND is basically a digital version of neutral density filters, and it works up to 5 stops. So it goes from ND8 to ND32, which is the equivalent of 5 stops, and you'll be able to see exactly what the ND effect is through the viewfinder or on the back screen when you're using Live ND. Now, of course, like I said, every camera has to have superior video these days, and the EM1X is one of those as well. Of course, you've got your stabilization that carries through into movies, so you've got that really steady handheld use, completely weatherproof, which is fantastic if you're an outdoor documentarian or any outdoor shooting whatsoever. And of course, you can shoot up to Cinema 4K, and it's adjustable stabilization through Cinema 4K as well. So you can make your image stabilization stronger or weaker. If you're doing panning movements, you can adjust the CAF speed if you're using continual autofocus for your video shooting. So you've got lots and lots of control everywhere through Full HD up to Cinema 4K. We also introduced OM log 400, which is your video grading log, or your shooting LUT, so that you can grade in post edit, and you can see here the differences from that muted shooting mode, OM log 400, which is an LUT, to the graded look on final post process. So it makes a massive difference when you are post processing your videos. Now, of course, there is an expandable system. There are tons of accessories that you can go through. I mean, you've got third-party ones, you've got Olympus ones, you've got all sorts of different ones. And of course, the Micro Four Thirds mount has opened up over the last sort of, 12 years or so. Massive amounts of third-party lenses. But of course, all the pro lenses that go with the range will enable all of the features on your Olympus cameras to be unlocked as well. And now, of course, you get free of charge Olympus Workspace software. That's our editing software. And it's also the only place that you should be updating the firmware on your camera. So if you need to update your firmware, download the Olympus Workspace software and do the update from within that software. If you've got any older firmware updater software, I don't recommend you use it because there is a potential that it could do some damage, or it could just not talk to the camera and things like that. So always use the up-to-date software. And of course, we've got the Olympus capture software, which supports full Wi-Fi tethered shooting, which the EM1X does. Completely wireless tethered shooting to your laptop through Olympus capture. It also contains a field sensor system. So we took what we put into the TG range, the tough camera range, with all these field sensors, things like barometers, temperature sensors, compass, GPS, all those things. And we took those and we put them into the EM1X. So you've got all that data that you can track and log, as well as a built-in e-compass. So if you do get lost, you can just flip your camera screen out and follow the compass, head north, wherever the nearest bar is, east, south, or west. And of course, we've got the Olympus Image Share app. So there's an app that you can download for your phone or your tablet that will help you remotely control your camera from a distance in an open space across 40 to 45 feet. It's a phenomenal app, and it now does also support Pro Capture use as well, which is phenomenal. Expanding the system even further, you've got the teleconverters, the 1.4 times and the 2 times, which we've already talked about in the comments. And here is a little idea of how much bigger and how much more it weighs than an EM1 Mark II or 3 now with the grip attached. So if you were to put a grip on an EM1 Mark II, you're looking at 146.4 mil high. The X is 146.8. There's barely a hair's width in it. Across a little bit more, we're looking at 68.9 millimeters across, and 75.4 on the EM1X, and 134 wide on an EM1 Mark II and 3, and 144 wide on the EM1X. But ultimately, in terms of weight, you're looking at less than 100 grams more on the EM1X for the body only than you are looking at an EM1 Mark II or Mark III. Thank you for listening and for watching those particular parts and features of the EM1X. My email address is on the screen at the moment, so if you wanted to jot that down real quick, then you've got it. It is going to disappear in about 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then I'm going to come back to this. Of course, you can always get in touch with us through the Olympus UK Facebook page as well if you do need anything. But for all of your retail needs, obviously get in touch with Campkins in Cambridge. Let's have a look at what's going on in the comments. Duar is asking, do you have plans for wide aperture primes longer than the 300mm f4? If it's not on the roadmap, I can't tell you. No, in all honesty, I'm not lying when I tell you I'm not sure what will come in terms of longer primes than the 300mm f4. I know that longer primes do exist in photography. You've got things like the 500mm and the 600mm primes, but I'm not sure if we're going to go any bigger than that. We'll have to wait and see what the development comes. Obviously, we are, despite the fact that we are now Digital Solutions, we are continuing to research and develop everything. So there is new news coming out all the time from us. So we'll have to keep our eyes and our ears open for that one. Roger wants to know what menu for the compass. Well, that is a great question, Roger. Let me see if I can connect up a camera. I haven't used the compass menu myself in quite some time. So let's see if we can find it together. Roger, let's see where we're going with this. Right, my EM1X is booted up. We're not going to see anything too interesting through the back screen. Let's see if we can see this. There we go. So let's head on into the menu of the EM1X. And with the EM1X, I'm pretty sure it's going to be in the display option. So we need to check the display option. So we're going to go into D1 and go into control settings. Oh, sorry, not control settings, into info settings. And we want to go into LV off info. So this means live view off. When you're not seeing the live view on the back screen, what are you seeing? And in there's a box that you can tick that says field sensor info. And if you tick that, press OK, then when you are on your live view, and I'm pretty sure it's not going to do it now for me because that's not how the connection works. When you're on your live view, let's see if we can get the overhead camera to do this. Oh, it's gone a little bit dark, guys. Don't worry, I am still here. Let's get this overhead camera in. Let that boot up so we can get Roger all hooked up. We're going to get a little bit more focus in here. There we go. So we went into let's just double check that. We went into the menu. We went into D1, info settings, LV off info, and ticked field sensor info. We go back to our live view screen, press the monitor button once for the super control panel. And if I'm right, pressing info button once you're in there, brings up your little compass there as well. Now, these dotted lines would be the longitude and latitude, but I don't have the GPS switched on at the moment, and it's telling me that it's 17.9 degrees in my studio, which is quite chilly, I'm not going to lie, it feels a bit chilly. And I'm a mere 7 meters above sea level. And if I want to get rid of that again, press info one more time, it brings me back to my super control panel, press the monitor button to get back to live view. So hopefully, Roger, give me a little wave and let me know that that's made sense for you. There we go. Okay, what else have we got going on? Campkins putting in the links for the converters. Thank you very much indeed. Leonard, you're right. On the TG6, pressing the info button just once with the camera off brings up the compass. Yeah, that's right. So it's a very similar thing. You've just got to go through the monitor button, then the info, but make sure it's ticked in the menu. Brilliant. Roger's found it. Excellent stuff. Fantastic. Okay. Good. Well, my time is about up. So it's been a nice little session to go over the EM1X with you and do that little overview, answer a couple of questions, give you a few tips where to find those things. I hope it's been useful. Sadly, I'm not here for day 3 of the Cambridge Photo Weekender. I'll be taking a day off, unfortunately. I know. They let me have one every now and again. They let me have one day off. So I'm going to take that tomorrow. But I hope the rest of you are going to enjoy whatever Cambridge Photography Week has to offer on the lives and on the videos tomorrow as well. Don't forget that you can go back into store on Monday, which is awesome if you're in the UK. So do that. Stay safe. Keep shooting, obviously. And if you've got any questions about Olympus kit, you can ask Campkins. You can come to us at Olympus UK and keep an eye out for everything that we're going to be doing in the future. Very soon, we will be back, hopefully within the next month or so, maybe 2 months. In fact, probably definitely at least 2 months. We'll be back to seeing people in real life, partially, but also doing more of this as well. So keep your eyes peeled as to what we're going to do moving forward. For now, enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Hi, how can I help?
That's +3 on the body, not on the flash at all.
EPL8, and it is basically what...
Hi, Captain, can you hear me?
Hi.
How are you doing?
See the tiger over my shoulder?
Yeah.
I can't move out of the way. There you go.
I can see him.
That was taken last March.
You've got a huge amount of technical knowledge.
Right, so how can I help? And then obviously make sure that there's still some background there, that bill's not filling it all completely.
And I think we've got every camera body.
You've done all that hard work. You want to be able to keep utilising it and future people to utilise it as well.
B for button.
Probably a B for button, yes.
My camera here as well, so I can follow and make some notes.
One's down to 15 meters with our case.
Okay.
A little video setting. I can put basically what you can see here is the camera setting.
Here at Olympus UK, we're doing everything we can to keep you inspired
And improve your skills. We're sharing all of our expertise,
advice, tips and tricks to help you get the most
Out of your Olympus camera.
And use this time creatively.
We all are looking forward
to getting back out there with our cameras.
But in the meantime, thank you for joining us online. Stay safe and stay home with us.